Now, as we all know, it's really hard to quit bad habits, but this enforced change to our daily routine could actually be just what we need to make us finally address our most unhealthy traits.
Smoking is one of the worst habits, so just how hard is it to quit the fags, and is vaping a viable alternative? Well, Kevin Duala investigates.
31-year-old bartender Ace Langley is typical of many young tobacco users. He smokes a lot, wants to give up, but everything he's tried so far hasn't worked.
What made you start?
Everyone in my family smoked, so it was just like a culture growing up. So at a young age, just pinch the cigarette and go out and act cool in front of your friends, you know.
How many cigarettes do you smoke a day, do you think?
Working, probably between 40 to 60. 40 if it's like a quiet night, 60 if it's busy and stressful.
Wow.
So quite a bit.
Yeah. What about quitting? Have you ever tried to quit before?
Yeah, I've tried to quit quite a few times.
With no success by the looks of things?
No, with no success. I mean, I've tried, like, patches. They didn't work at all. They made me feel quite dizzy, and even the gum just tasted like it was terrible. So I just ended up going back to cigarettes every time.
And in the wake of the coronavirus epidemic, quitting tobacco has never been more important. A recent report by the Chinese Medical Journal looked at 78 patients with COVID-19 and found that those with a history of smoking were 14 times as likely to develop pneumonia. But when it comes to kicking the habit, vaping might help Ace to say goodbye to cigarettes for good. For many medics, vaping could be a game changer for failed quitters. That's because it gives the same nicotine hit, but with a lot less of the harmful substances, like tar or carbon monoxide. But not all smokers are keen. Many cite media reports which say it's as harmful for you as smoking, or even worse.
We know smoking's bad for us, but what do you know about vaping?
Not a lot, to be perfectly honest, because you're smoking a liquid. And what does that do to your lungs? Can it give you any diseases other than cancer? And yeah, it's just so many questions to be answered.
E-cigarettes work by heating a nicotine liquid that is then converted to a vapor or mist that the user inhales. But do they contain other ingredients smokers should be worried about? I'm meeting Dr. Nick Hopkinson, a medical director of the British Lung Foundation, to find out more.
What are the main differences in the chemicals and the ingredients between cigarettes and vapes?
So I guess the main difference is that when you smoke a cigarette, you're inhaling tar and carbon monoxide, which are very toxic. When you're vaping, the vapor doesn't contain the toxic chemicals that are in cigarette smoke, or they're present at much, much lower levels. So that's the basis for this idea that vaping is much, much safer than smoking. The reason that people smoke is because of the nicotine, and what vaping is doing is it's providing a way of getting nicotine, but without most of the toxins that go along with smoking.
I want to know what Dr. Hopkinson makes of those rumours saying vaping's as bad for you as smoking.
It is confusing, and I mean, one of the things that's happened over the last sort of 4 or 5 years is that the proportion of people who think that vaping is more harmful than smoking is actually going up, even though that's absolutely not what the science says. So there are two really simple messages. Vaping is much, much safer than smoking, so if people switch from smoking to vaping, that's a big step forward to their health. For people who don't smoke, don't start vaping.
A study funded by Cancer Research UK revealed that around 6 in 10 smokers thought that e-cigarettes were as bad for your health as smoking.
There's a really important context behind this. There are still 6 million people in the UK who smoke, and about a third of people who smoke have never tried an e-cigarette. So they're missing out on something that might help them to quit smoking completely.
While someone who doesn't smoke at all should never be encouraged to take up vaping, the heavy smoker Ace, giving vaping a go for 4 weeks, might be the key to quitting long term. And to give him even more incentive, I've brought him to meet Dr. Hopkinson to show him just what effects his up to 60-a-day habit is having on his body.
So, Ace, have you been smoking today?
Yeah, I've been smoking quite a lot today.
Dr. Hopkinson is going to test the carbon monoxide level in Ace's body, as smokers generally have much higher levels than non-smokers.
So what kind of levels would you be looking at there?
We'd expect it to be somewhere between 10 and 20 parts per million when you breathe out.
How does that differ when people vape?
There's a liquid that is heated up and vaporizes, but nothing's being burnt, so you don't get the products of combustion. You don't get soot produced, and it doesn't produce any carbon monoxide.
OK, should we do it?
Fine. So a bit of a breath in and just hold your breath. It's just counting down there. When it gets down to 0, just blow steadily into that.
Carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas that is inhaled when you smoke.
I ran out of breath.
OK, so that's 14 parts per million. So a non-smoker would be kind of down around about 6, light smokers 10. So you're up there into kind of smoker, getting up into sort of heavy smoker levels there. So every day that you're smoking, your blood isn't able to carry as much oxygen as it would be if you were breathing clean air.
So, Ace, you're reading a 14 there. What are your first thoughts?
I mean, I know that cigarette smoking isn't good for you and it gives you cancer and such, but I don't think a lot of people actually understand what it does to you.
Does it help that you can visualise that gas latching onto your blood cells? Because that's what I was thinking.
That's why I can't hold my breath for that 20 seconds, for example. It's quite disturbing.
So, Ace, it's all down to you now. The tests have been done. So where in your mind are you now with this? How committed are you?
I'm 100% there. I mean, I don't want to see myself with a heart attack in the future or with proper health problems. So let's do this.
Well, for someone who smokes up to 60 a day, quitting the fags for 4 weeks could be something of a challenge. So we asked Ace to keep a video diary of how he's getting on. Will he stay on the wagon?
When I was at work earlier, I craved smoking a cigarette.
We'll find out when we return to this story later in the programme.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Look forward to seeing how Ace gets on there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, earlier we met heavy smoker Ace Langley as he started off on his journey to kick his lifelong cigarette habit. Kevin Duala picks up the story.
With reports saying coronavirus hits smokers harder than non-smokers because long-term smoking suppresses the immune function of our lungs, there's never been a better time to quit the fags. And while non-smokers should never be tempted to vape, for cigarette smokers, taking up vaping instead can be a great stepping stone to quitting altogether. Last month, before most of us knew how much we needed to be concerned about the coronavirus, we asked heavy smoker Ace Langley from London to swap his 40 to 60 cigarettes a day for a vape in the hopes of improving his health. And it now seems like he couldn't have made the lifestyle change at a better time.
Good morning, people.
Having tried and failed to quit smoking many times, Ace is using an electronic cigarette in the hopes of eventually weaning himself off nicotine completely. And he's agreed to film his progress. It's fair to say, it's not all been plain sailing.
When I was at work earlier, I craved smoking a cigarette, and especially when everyone that smoked went out for a cigarette break. This was actually perfect. My cigarette craving is quite bad. It's not helping with the cravings as much as I had expected, but I think that's partly mentally.
Ace is clearly struggling. To encourage him to stick with vaping rather than returning to cigarettes, we've asked Hazel Cheeseman from Action on Smoking and Health to show him what's going on inside his lungs.
So what we've got here is effectively sort of 2 lungs. We've got 2 jars with cotton wool in them, and we're going to use one to smoke the 60 cigarettes that you used to smoke every day, and then the other one we're going to put the e-cigarette in and see what comes through from the vapour. So we're only a few cigarettes in at the moment, and you can already see the cotton wool's looking pretty dirty there.
Yeah, it looks really bad.
Looking at the jar where the e-vapour is going in, looks pretty different.
Doesn't look anything like what smoking a cigarette looks like. There's not even smoke trapped in there, there's no discoloration.
Well, that's of course because there isn't any smoke going in there. Oof, wow.
That smells like my ashtrays. Ah.
Wow, have a look at that. Just smear it across here so we can see what's coming off of it.
That is disgusting.
How does it make you feel about smoking now?
Now it's quite eye-opening because I can imagine after the amount I've smoked for the time I've smoked, my lungs must be pitch black.
I reckon your lungs might be pretty pleased with you right now for not having having done that for a few weeks.
And while Ace's e-cigarette still contains harmful nicotine, it doesn't produce smoke or tar. So his other cotton wool lung is looking much better.
Of course, there are things that we, can't see from this test that you will be produced when you inhale an e-cigarette. So, if you're a non-smoker, don't use these products.
Of course.
But for somebody who is smoking heavily, smoking regularly, you can see the benefit of switching from something which produces this to something that produces this.
I can imagine what it's been doing to my lungs over that sort of period of time, and it's really kind of scary. I can happily say that after seeing that, I'm not going to touch cigarettes again.
Ace was as good as his word and stayed off cigarettes.
Happy days and happy vaping.
Since the coronavirus has forced us all to keep our distance in public places, he hasn't been able to return to Dr. Hopkinson, the medical director of the British Lung Foundation, to see if his health has improved. But 5 weeks after swapping his packet of fags for an e-cigarette, I'm catching up with him to see how he's been getting on. Via video call, of course.
Ace, how have you been?
Not too bad, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. I guess the important question is how have you been feeling since you've been vaping?
A lot healthier than I expected. Not smoking cigarettes has improved my health dramatically. I feel a lot more energetic now. I do a lot more physical activities like running, so it's benefited me quite well.
Looking to the future, how confident are you that you're going to quit smoking altogether?
I've been reducing my nicotine content quite dramatically. I've been halving it every time. So slowly, I'm going to get to zero nicotine and never need a cigarette in my life.
Well, it's been great catching up with you, Ace, and congratulations, and keep going, man, keep going.
Thank you very much, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Kev. Thank you.
Brilliant work from Ace. Well, the message is, if you're ever going to give up your own particular bad habit, there will never be a more important time to do it than now.